like a ton of bricks falling on my head. I remembered my small farm outside the little country town of Dana. Dana was surrounded by dozens of mom and pop farms, including mine. I hadn't been there since coming to Sierra, but recalled I owned a berry farm. It also included several small orchards. The farm, I said. Dana answered, late spring, early summer. That was just what I was thinking. She asked, are we going this year? What do you mean, are we going this year? I didn't mean anything. You should visit the farm. Curiously, I felt like making jam as more thoughts filled my mind. A minute ago, I didn't have a clue. And now, 1 moment later, I can say I have always loved the farm this time of the year, picking berries, picking fruit from the orchards, and canning them. Doing so was one of my oddities, I guess, but after a year of neglect, I was unclear what I might find once there. Now I was dizzy from too much information at one time. Dana, I think I'm going to pass out. Well, you look pale. Can I get you something to drink? How about a pillow in case you fall on the floor and can't get up? Dana, what are you talking about? I'll be fine. Give me a minute. Sometimes, the memories come back too fast to control. All right, but you better stay put, until your color comes back. I wouldn't try to walk in your condition. I sat, and guzzled a soda. 5 minutes later, I got up, walked outside, and called for Louis. Once at Cedar, I sat down beside a quaint little farmhouse. The farm itself comprised 6 acres of berries and 3 acres of orchards. The house, barn, and outbuildings took up the last acre. It was a golden evening, and no one was around. The farm was so mysteriously quiet. Farms have a certain atmosphere, especially in the evening. It's clearly a different kind of quietness. I stood suspended in place for a while, facing the barn. It looked as if it was glowing by the way the evening sun laid across its surface. When I came to, I went for a walk around the backside. As I walked, I sent scores of garter snakes scurrying up under the barn. There were hundreds of them. I could only wonder what role they played in this universe. They still acted like snakes, slithering off, and sending chills up my legs. Every time at my first glance of a snake, I always sensed it was a rattlesnake. I imagined one coming up and biting me on the back of my ankle. Just the thought hurt all the way up to my behind. A short way down the backside was a large red and white Dutch door that opened into the barn. It was 8 feet wide and 8 feet tall. I opened them, and on the other side were 6 stalls, 3 on either side of the door. That made sense that the door was big enough to allow livestock through, but I didn't remember having cows or horses on the farm. When I came back outside, I saw an old dusty road 50 feet out from the building. I walked over to it and found tire tracks. The tracks looked to be from a large truck, maybe a tractor. I haven't seen any motor vehicles, other than the vehicles Art showed me, since coming to Sierra. It was a farm, after all. I should assume there might be an old flatbed or tractor on the farm somewhere. I looked both ways, but couldn't see the end of the road in either direction. On the outside of the road was a white wooden fence following the dirt road into oblivion. Perhaps the road and fence belonged to a neighbor. I looked down, and the tracks looked fresh. It must belong to someone else. Looking through the fence, I saw that the neighbor also grew berries, as there were rows upon rows of strawberries without end. Those fields were many times bigger than mine. They must work the farm year-round, unlike me. I didn't remember ever working my few acres. I made my way to the other end of the barn, where I found 2 large barn doors with 2 smaller loft doors above them. I opened one door to find a narrow aisle between 2 high stacks of baled hay on either side. I don't know why the hay was there. Again, I was certain there were no animals on the farm. What if there were? Have I been neglecting them for the last several months? I imagined finding skeletons of some very large horses, maybe cows, lying around somewhere in the barn. Please don't let that be so. The rows of hay were stacked up to a loft above them, 15 feet. I walked to the other end of the aisle, where it opened to an equipment room with an old tractor parked in the center. Fortunately, I found no dead livestock. That justifies at least one set of tracks on the old dirt road. I inspected the ancient tractor. I assumed it was built in the 1950s. It was red, but aren't most tractors? Its rear wheels were as tall as I was, with big white rims. There was a big seat setting on the back. I could only guess the size of the butt that seat held. It looked like it could hold 3 of mine. I chuckled, relevant to my dumb thoughts. Right in front of the tractor was another set of barn doors that opened to the front of the building. The loft above the hay stretched across the whole back end of the barn and down both sides for 20 feet, 15 feet wide. A ladder leaned up against the floor of the loft. So, I climbed up to have a look. Other than a couple bales of hay by the loft doors, there was nothing else on top. I went back outside and closed both barn doors. In front of the barn was another road which circled the berry fields. There were 2 sets of barn doors hanging from the front of the barn. The first set of doors led to the equipment room. The other set, near the other end, opened into a large space which took up over half the barn. When I entered, I was facing the stalls on the back wall. I still didn't get it, because I was certain I kept no animals on the farm. Yet, the stalls and hay suggested otherwise. Why didn't I remember this? Well, I declined to burn my brain out, struggling to figure it out. I was sure there was an answer. It will come in time. Near the center of the barn was a raised platform right below a large skylight. It looked like a dance floor, except in the center was an island, and the outer edge was surrounded with appliances and tall cabinets full of cookware. Chairs, folding tables, and canning jars were stacked up against the outside wall. I gathered this was where all the magic takes place. It looked like the command center for canning operations. As I stepped back outside the barn, I stopped in the doorway and looked at the overgrown berry fields. I turned again to look at the equipment inside the barn, bent my head just a little, and thought, I can't pick all those berries and preserve them all by myself. Something's missing. Again, I refused to struggle to figure it out. As I walked towards the house, I saw it was clouding up. The sky was full of broken clouds, and as I got a short distance away from the barn, one discovered me as it poured right above me. I hurried on to the porch where several inviting chairs sat scattered around, encouraging me to have a seat. I was delighted to be out of the rain, and the porch was an excellent spot to watch the sunset. The home was an old 2-story farmhouse with a porch wrapped around the entire building. I sat for a while, watching the rain dissipate as the sun went down. Eventually, I retired for the night with the light of a full moon beaming through the windows. It lit up the whole house and countryside. How peaceful, and lonely. I got up too early the next morning. I still loved my sleep because each day seemed brand new. Apparently, I unconsciously, pun intended, woke up for a reason, because I wasn't up 10 minutes before several people showed up. Dana walked in and started preparing breakfast. Now, I know why she asked me if we were going. I guess she was planning on making peanut butter cookies, as following behind her was her little friend from Neon. It surprised me by how many people showed up in the morning, although I didn't recognize most. 23 people came for breakfast, including a young, attractive woman named Alex. Uh-oh. I walked straight into the door jam. She was 5'7" with long dark thick red wavy hair, almost auburn. Her eyes radiated a rare shade of green when she smiled. I looked twice because she was so gorgeous. She must have detected me staring at her, because the first thing she said with her rich Irish accent, smiling all the while, "Hello, Jeff. We know each other. We are best friends, and I have missed you." I thought, wait a minute. What? And pretended like it was no big deal. I said, "Hi." That was all I could say without slobbering on myself. She chuckled, then turned to help Dana in the kitchen. I felt for the bump on my forehead. Back on Earth, I might have been interested in her. I was certain something she said caught my attention. I'm sure it was when she said, "Hello." Oh well. She must have known something about my situation because of how she greeted me. It made little sense. I didn't remember her. While we ate breakfast, I told the group what had transpired. They all smiled, patted me on the back, and then walked out to the berry fields. It meant nothing to them, and I was insulted. I looked at Dana. She at me. Once everyone left the kitchen, I asked her about Alex. She told me Alex already knew what happened to me. Dana told me Jack filled her in on my condition. Jeff, she has been checking up on you since your transformation. She calls me for updates all the time. She knew in your state she might be a distraction. I didn't respond. I understood there were probably a great number of people I knew and have not had contact with since my transformation. My mind made some vacant attempts to normalize my feelings, but my heart refused to get over those nervous emotions. She unquestionably impacted me. She must be someone special, and as hard as I tried my best to be nonchalant, unaffected by her demeanor, I was just too clumsy around her. I made my way out to the fields where everyone was picking berries and hauling them over to the barn. I wandered over to the barn first to see what was going on inside. Several young people were inside preparing the equipment for making jam. I noticed a young couple in love, although, nowadays, young was like 35, maybe 50 years old. I snickered to myself as the young man was the young lady's indentured servant. She ordered him around like it was nobody's business. Well, not ordered, but he waited upon her slightest whim. I did not consider that kind of love here in Sierra, other than a few minutes ago. Alex, nor I, could ever have that kind of relationship. Immortals did not marry or fall in love anymore. They had something much richer, more desirable. Mortals still fell in love, married and had families, and these two expressed that kind of love. I felt like a hypocrite. I shook my head as I went into the fields to help pick berries. No sooner did I enter the fields when someone hit me on the side of my head with a strawberry. I looked around to pinpoint the assailant, but no one appeared guilty. Then another one hit me in the same spot. Only this time, I detected the offender. It was the little angel friend of Dana's, and she was flying 15 feet off the ground holding another berry. I suspected she intended it for me, so I picked one to throw it at her as fast as I could, but she was too fast. Once again, she struck with precision. I yelled, "Oh, bring it on, baby." I must have thrown 20 berries at her without landing a single one. She, on the other hand, was accurate, turning half of my face red with berry juice. I yelled for Dana. As soon as I hollered, she took off like lightning. I laughed as I began picking berries. We made berry jam the first day. The second day, we invaded the orchards, picking all the different fruit, peaches, pears, plums, cherries, and apples. We picked more than we could use. We canned what we didn't eat. On the third day, a flatbed truck showed up carrying all kinds of food. It was an old black 1949 Ford with a wide wooden slatted bed. I had to have a closer look. It was fabulously restored, and I wanted to get in and drive, but it was full of our lunch. Several transportation crafts arrived. My family, Jack's family, all the other families joined us. Apparently, it was an annual picnic. We placed several tables in the yard, and everyone put the food from the truck on them. I could smell cooking coming from the barn. Dana and others were baking all kinds of bread and casseroles. We set 4 BBQs at the end of one table and filled them with burgers and hot dogs. 2 young men manned them. Children set plates and silverware on the table, and the young couple set out jars of jam. I didn't remember this, so I purposely slowed myself down to savor the occasion. Sophie brought 6 horses with her and put them in the stalls in the barn. A group of kids carried hay for them and gave them water. Mystery solved. As we sat around talking, another person brought 4 more horses. So, several kids with 2 adults went horseback riding. Most of the other kids enjoyed their youth by running around crazy. Some older boys discovered the hayloft at the far end of the barn. Dana pulled the tractor out, so they made forts to play King of the Hill. In the evening, everybody left except Jack. He and I sat on the front porch reminiscing about the day. While Jack and I were sitting and talking, Dana, the little fairy, landed on my shoulder, crawled down into my shirt pocket, and fell asleep. I was cautious not to move so as not to wake her. Turning to Jack, I said, "I've been here for over 7 months, and I have not had that eye-opening moment, or life-changing epiphany yet." "I don't know that you are going to have an epiphany. You're here to write a story. Actually, I would expect this whole adventure to be the epiphany. Well, it's not over yet. I'm still expecting something to slap me in the face. Okay, I can slap you in the face, if you like, if you promise not to slap me back. Have you always picked on me like this? I've never had the advantage over you in the past. I hope my other self finds out about how you treat me sometimes. Oh, I'm sure he will. I changed the subject, and we talked into the night regarding the duties of a watcher. I told him how I felt like a failure until I went to see Dave. He informed me of some of the different things he was working on, and how he planned to resolve a couple of them. After that, I asked him about Alex. He informed me she was a fellow watcher, and that she and I were close. He said, she's holding back for fear you will get information from her you should not have. Also, you're immortal now. It was bad enough when both of you were immortals. I can't imagine either of you being mortal and having those kinds of feelings towards the other. I was a bit taken back by her. I felt my forehead again to see if I was still sporting the bump. He explained, she always shows up at holiday and stays through the end of December. She didn't come this year because she didn't want to complicate or distract from your situation. That made me sad, although she had complicated the last 3 days. I understood and hoped someday we would be as close as Jack suggested. I obviously had feelings for her. We talked for a couple more hours until I got tired and went to bed. So, I took off my shirt very delicately and placed it on a soft chair in the living room, while the little angel remained in the pocket. When I woke up, the farm was empty, except for my Dana, who came back and was in the kitchen cooking me breakfast. She had cooked bacon, eggs, hash browns, and hot cakes. I said, after all the food I ate yesterday, I can't imagine eating anything now. I do this every year, so shut up, sit down and eat. I guess I was ravenous. I ate everything she put before me. Honestly, I wasn't positive I ate because of hunger or fear. Dana pointed out a case of jam next to 2 cases of canned goods sitting on the kitchen counter for me. Dana left after making breakfast and cleaning up. I made her take the cases with her. I stayed for another walk through the orchards before I left. The sun was up, and the sky spread bright blue above the trees. The air was cool from the shade and carried a strong bouquet of ripe pears combined with the fresh scent of dampness and dirt. I embraced it as I walked around for 2 hours before returning home. The first night home, I had the same dream about the man on the beach. It troubled me. The second time was as if I could feel the anguish the young man felt as the beast struck him. I'm not altogether sure it was a dream. Just because it took place after I went to bed, doesn't mean I slept. After all, the way I was popping around, who knows? So, the next morning, I went into the bathroom to look in the mirror to check if I had any recent bruises. I didn't find any, but since I was there, I cleaned up and made my way up to the kitchen, and then to the back patio. While enjoying coffee out on the patio, I thought about the city of commerce. The city was where most business was conducted in Sierra. I recalled I had attended many meetings throughout the day as part of my obligation as a watcher. I had no intention of exercising my position, but I was still curious. Maybe I could go there and just walk around and get a feel for the place. I know I have a condo in the city. I could stop by and see if it needs cleaning or maintenance. It's been sitting empty for a long time. I should check on it. I asked Dana, I am thinking of going to Commerce. I'm not planning on taking Louis. Will I have any foreseeable problems getting there on my own? She answered, transportation maintains a record of all the places you go, and keeps track of all the property you own. If you said, take me to my condo in Commerce, it knows where to take you. If you ever get lost, tell the craft to take you home, and it will deliver you here every time. I almost felt bad not taking Louis, but I needed a smaller craft. The condo was on the 7th floor of a building downtown. It proved easier to get into the condo by landing on its patio. Louis did not fit on the patio. As I approached Commerce, its beauty was overwhelming. In my mind, I vaguely knew what Commerce looked like, although I wasn't prepared for what I saw. I wondered to myself why I took so long to come here. There were several elements out of sync for me, and I couldn't quite figure it out. I should have come here before now. I guess I was being more led around than giving in to my normal propensity to poke around. Except for 3 industrial cities on factory, the City of Commerce was the largest inhabited city in Sierra. All people traveled to Commerce to conduct government business, all business throughout all of Sierra. The city itself was 60 miles square and contained 20 different districts, with most of the districts comprising shops, guild offices, and squares. All the buildings in the district of my condo looked like modern-day pyramids. Each pyramid took up 9 square city blocks and stood 20 stories high. The pyramid district housed mostly hotels, restaurants, conference rooms, and condos. All the condos were in the pyramid district. Each pyramid contained 200 condos and half as many little shops to benefit the residents. An elevator ran up at each corner of each building and stopped at each floor. My condo was on the 7th floor, right at the northwest corner. The streets below were made of brick and cobblestone, 80 feet wide. In the middle sat 2 lines of benches, outlining 2 sets of rails, where old-fashioned trolleys traveled in both directions, crisscrossing at each intersection. The walkways were always occupied with an alphabet of food vendors. At the south end of town was a river flowing west. It had a massive waterfall at the southeast corner of the city. A road made its way over a bridge crossing that same river and then turned southwest into the suburbs. Several 100,000 inhabitants made up several neighborhoods outside the city. Most adults living on the outskirts worked in the city. I owned a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo more than big enough to be comfortable. Most significant, it came with a chef's kitchen, which was right next to the patio. Splendid. I landed the craft on the patio. The patio was decorated with fine mason work. It had a fountain in the middle and was besieged by a circular spot of grass. Walls lining it were constructed of large grey-colored granite stones. Each one was cut 4 foot by 2 foot wide. The patio's outer edge had an outer wall made of similar stones, high enough to look over and see the street below and the river at the end of town. Soon after I arrived, I had flashes about the chef's kitchen. I liked to cook, and I remember in the past standing in the condo's kitchen watching instruction videos on a drop screen, standing behind the stove cooking, and my family always sitting at the table full of food and preparing to eat. My kids with my friends were always there, and I was always ambitious to find out if they liked my cooking. Now, I missed my kids again. I walked back outside onto the patio to look over the wall. People were busy scurrying around below. I almost spit. I looked down towards the river where a mist was rising in the cool evening air. No matter how noisy commerce became down below, it always remained quiet on my comfortable patio. Jack came by early the next morning. Jack must like the early morning. Has he ever heard of brunch? When he vigorously rang the doorbell, I thought maybe there was a fire. I made my way to the door, and after opening it, I stood there staring at him. "Are you going to let me in?" he asked. "Jack, what time is it?" "Well, it's 3 p.m. where I just came from." "How is it you always catch me so early in the morning?" "Just lucky, I guess." "Just lucky, indeed. Come in." He gave me a few minutes to wake up. Afterward, we went down onto the street below, and then spent most of the day walking around town. We stopped in at the Watcher building. Over 10,000 people worked there. The building was the largest building in all of Sierra. It was at least 20 blocks square, and 10 stories high. All 15 council members had offices in the building, along with 136 watchers, and 2,040 observers. To facilitate those positions, there was an additional 6,000 support staff, like clerks, secretaries, receptionists, and maintenance personnel. We visited my secretaries, Zoe and Pamela. Jack took me into the office and called both in. He explained how I was still in an impaired state and wouldn't speculate when I should be back to myself. Zoe asked to go on vacation. Pam smiled and instructed me to hasten and get back to the office. She was becoming bored and was tired of finding busy work to keep her occupied. After visiting, we rose and hugged each other. Both fled the office, going back to their desks as Jack and I left. As we left, I noticed Zoe packing up her things. I also sensed the eyes on my back as people gawked and murmured on my way out. A short while afterward visiting, and as we were walking, we came across a craft and flower shop where I recognized the woman standing and directing a herd of other adults and children around her. She was in the middle of instructing the children about flower compositions. I stood watching as she struggled to describe to them the art of such. Then she stopped to look at them to see if they were paying attention. The kids stopped whatever they were doing, mostly goofing off, and stared back at her. She looked over my direction, and when she saw me standing there, she shouted, "Hi, Jeff." I waved and said, "Hi." I didn't know who it was yet, and she kept looking at me. So, I walked over and told her of my condition and how I didn't recognize too many people. She told me her name was Kelly. A light came on. Far out. Of course, that's what we said back in the day. I knew Kelly from when I served in the Navy as a young man back on Earth, and then ran into her again when I was much older, and we became friends again. When first coming to Sierra, she spent 100 years as a biological scientist on board the North ship, working regularly with Casey and Crystal. She gave her job up to spend more time with her family. Since she has created and now owns this store, and 7 others, which were a combination of flowers and crafts. I didn't have a clue even such a place existed until she told me. Her shop was busy and being run by her family. At the end of the tribulation, Kelly adopted a family of 7 kids. I agreed she was crazy, but apparently, she knew the parents well before the tribulation. The parents got involved with Mr. Smith's big family program, but died before the Great War, leaving behind the children. She adopted them after learning who the kids' parents were, and under the circumstances sought to care for them. Now the kids have their own kids, and more kids have more kids, culminating in her daily mad routine of teaching them all the business. Clearly, she was setting up an army to take over some neighborhood or small town. She relied on the help of her grown children and grandchildren. It seemed like a madhouse. I chuckled as it was amazing how she even got any work done. We talked for a while, then said goodbye, see you soon. She was living the life many enjoyed in God's kingdom, simple, but fulfilling. I sensed all along while talking to her, there was something about Kelly which would be detrimental to the story, and I perceived she will be influential when it came time to put it down on paper. I sensed something. In reality, Kelly was still living back on Earth. I planned to mention it when I got back, but not everything. After I tell her, maybe she will change her mind and go into cattle ranching or something much different from growing flowers and kids on the streets of commerce. Afterward, Jack and I stopped at a hot dog stand to order lunch. The vendor said, "Hiya, Jeff, Jack." Jack answered, "Howdy, Lyle." I immediately remembered Lyle. He was one of the 15 council members. In his spare time, he sold hot dogs on the walkway. Hilarious. I was sure he must be in the middle of an observation, but truthfully, he loved the city more than anyone. He set up the hot dog stand so he could spend his time there. He sold hot dogs from one end of town to the other. We sat to talk for a while, and Lyle joined in when he could get away from his stand. He was more than a little absorbed in my situation. I became a little suspicious of Lyle when he asked who would replace me if I don't come back. Jack turned to him and said, "I or Alex would take over, and we would relegate you to an observer." I laughed at him, although he took it in stride. I mentioned I planned to attend 1 or 2 meetings in town. Lyle said, "Good luck with that." Then, Jack told me I might find Dave in a particular conference room for a meeting that afternoon. He gave me directions, and I was off. As I attended the meeting, they asked for my judgment, which I at first declined, stating I was only observing. The meeting was regarding the Polynesians and the islands off the coast of 6 Rivers. Dave explained to them concerning the Cherokee Nation, who claimed the boundary controls over the area of ocean where the islands existed and supported the move. Because the Cherokees were land dwellers, they had no use for the islands and were looking forward to trading with the Polynesians. The islands themselves provided the right climate for growing all kinds of tropical fruit, which violated no current required policies when changing the status of that parcel of land. When pressed again for a comment, I said, we could move the seals and the iguanas. A colony of seals took up habitation there in late spring when the salmon passed during their annual migration. It should be no obstacle to round them up and move them to another area. Plenty of suitable places were convenient for their habitation, which would not force a change in their habits. I said, it should take place as long as they have approved the proper border changes, and if such proved to be the case, it should be a simple resolution. They could find no Syrian policies or articles prohibiting the move. They agreed and confirmed the move, unanimously. Dave and I spoke for a while afterward. I asked him if he wanted to get together for dinner. He couldn't because he needed to get back and meet with the Polynesians and Cherokee leaders. Each side was eager to get moving. I returned to the condo early evening. Since the kitchen was stocked with all kinds of food, I wanted to make lasagna. I remembered how to make it but wasn't positive of all the ingredients. Standing behind the kitchen counter, I said, TV. Nothing transpired. Okay, screen. I shouted. A large screen dropped from the ceiling against the back wall. I remembered watching many cooking videos on this screen. Once I said cooking videos, I was in business. After traveling through a list of cooking channels on the screen, I recalled the thousands of channels covering everything in Sierra. The tourist channel provided hour-long shows, revealing all the distant places to go. Out of curiosity, I asked for a program on Jerusalem. You're not allowed to view such programming, it responded in an annoying, unnatural, inhuman voice. I honestly sensed Big Brother watching my every move. I spent an hour looking at all the different channels until I returned to the cooking channel for lasagna in particular. I was halfway finished cooking when a knock came at the door. Alex, the young, beautiful woman, was standing there smiling at me. "Hi, Jeff," she said, in her sweet Irish accent. "Hi, Alex," followed by an awkward pause. "Are you going to invite me in?" "Oh, please come in." She stepped in, then hugged me and said, "I was on my patio when I heard you yell at your kitchen screen. It sounded like you were listening to the cooking channel. So, I suspected you were cooking and hoped you would like company." She gazed at me the whole time. I tried to figure out what such a gaze meant. I was just getting ready to make lasagna. This was a pleasant surprise, even though I kept trying to place her. I didn't understand why I couldn't recognize her as much as I should. But I felt warm feelings for her as if we were close, yet, the feelings were foggy. She said, "I'm here for a meeting tomorrow. A developer wants to build a new hotel on the coast of Old England. I am presenting for the owner, who was new in their position. She's a friend of mine, and I'm helping her through the legal process. I heard you over here, and I'm famished, and fortunately for me, I love your cooking." Now, I felt pressure. What if I ruined it? I invited her to have a seat as I pointed to the chairs up against the kitchen island. 4 high-back chairs set on the outside, nestled under its counter below the screen. She took a seat as I continued cooking. She already knew my condition, so no reason to restate it. Instead, she explained how she got saved and died as a young girl in Ireland. She and her twin sister, Mary, perished when they were young during the potato famine in Ireland back in 1848. Her father was a preacher, and she and her sister got saved at a young age before they died. The rest of her family died soon after her and her sister. Today, they live in the small town of Wexford in Carlingford, and she visits them every other weekend for Sabbath. She told me she has owned the condo next to me for over 90 years. She got it when the previous owner moved back to Earth. Consequently, we became close friends and devoted a great deal of time together. I tormented my brain, trying to remember. Twins? I only got fragments of information, but nothing concrete. Obviously, she was important. I looked at her and said, "I wish I could remember more. Honestly, it hurts that I can't." "Don't worry, Jeff. We're very close to one another, and I have no intention of altering our relationship just because I'm a stranger to you. I will remember for us both. Ask me anything, and I'll straighten it out for you. With that being said, I hope you understand I cannot tell you everything you might wish to know." That would probably be a lot of help, because even the screen won't tell me anything. It's unnerving and makes me think something like Big Brother is watching over me. I suspect that it's both exciting yet frustrating for you. They gave me only a minor role since Jack has taken the lead. What you need to learn doesn't encompass me. Well, it does not include many of your friends if I interpret correctly, although I look forward to seeing you when possible. The rest of the evening, we talked of her position within the council, commerce. I asked her how long had we been meeting at the farm. She said we have been meeting there for over 85 years. She still had jam from the previous year. Then I asked her what relationship she had with Jack. She and Jack had equal positions within the council, sharing second in command. Either would fill in for me when needed. I wasn't sure why I asked. Through our conversation, during dinner, I could tell she was more than competent. After supper, we walked out onto the patio to have a cup of after-dinner green tea. We stood leaning over the wall watching the activity below. She looked at me with a certain look. I thought she might spit. Even though it was evening, people kept busy running around, scurrying from place to place. Alex pointed to the sky and mentioned that it was the night of crescent moons. The moons circling Commerce rise together crescent every 20 years. We left for a walk as the seventh and last moon came up over the horizon. The night could not have been more perfect with all 7 moons hanging low in the western sky. The evening was warm except for a cool breeze coming from the river. We held hands as we walked, but it would not, or could not, go any further. I was still mortal, and she wasn't, which made for some complex feelings for me. Jeff, since we're getting reacquainted, we should spend more time together. Yes, that sounds good. She hugged me, and I closed the door behind her. I felt bad treating her more like a guest than a friend, although from that moment on, I planned to keep in contact with her on a more regular basis. When we got together, we talked for hours. She came over for the Sabbaths when she wasn't with her family. Other than my kids, she was next closest. I was certain when I go back to my world, I'll think of her often.